Good evening and welcome to United Soccer FC. I am your host, Harry, here, and tonight we're going to be talking some FC Cincinnati. It's a team that's starting year 6 for it here. And with me is Bryan Weigel from Cincinnati Soccer Talk. How are you doing this evening?
Wonderful, man. Thanks for having me.
And I just want to, give a huge thank you to, to the Cincinnati Soccer Talk crew, the creator Nick, Superling, you and your brother Brad, Yosef and Bill Wolf, who started it, and then Ken, Boston Keith, who came on later during the USL years. For me as a fan of USL, what you guys did at that time was kind of raising the bar of what podcasts and USL shows can do. And in my opinion, you guys have only got better with MLS coverage, although I don't watch it as often just because I'm a USL guy. But for me, it's still one of the top 10, soccer sites with the show, podcasts, and writing on there. So, just want to give you guys a huge thank you for, especially during the USL years. Obviously you guys covered, FCC, but you guys would also expand to USL overall. And I know you guys touch on MLS now and a little bit USL still, especially when it comes to your frenemies down in Louisville.
Well, thank you for that. The glory days of FC Cincinnati in our short time were definitely the USL days, as well as a glorious US Open Cup run back in 2017. So I think you will never see, well, that's not true. Of a lot of the diehard FC Cincinnati fans, you won't see us slight the USL as much as you will with some of the newer FC Cincinnati fans. We appreciate the league. Yeah, I'm sure there's some differences on who elevated who, but it was a great time. A lot of great rivalries and friendships grew out of that. Mm-hmm. And it's just imagine how big that league is now compared to what we thought it was 8-10 years ago. It's just been a dream. So I'm so happy that it's growing, and hopefully it'll keep growing with these new stadiums coming online.
And I will say, because we used to call you attendance,
attendance
king
FC?
of the attendance. That has now been passed to New Mexico United. So just like with fan votes, if you went up against a Cincinnati player, it was hey, good luck. Same thing, New Mexico United's, it seems like you pass the torch to them when it comes to the attendance. So there's always one.
Hey, man, those guys scouted out FC Cincinnati so hard. I remember them coming to visit Nippert and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We had a wine and dine them. Yeah, it's interesting, but you're always going to have, I think you're going to have so many more markets coming online in that league that it'll just keep growing and pushing the bar higher.
So as we mentioned, we did want to kind of touch on, since I'm more of have the USL background, I wanted to kind of go over and review the 3 years on there, and really kind of 4 years, because talking about the announcement and just what went right for FC Cincinnati and during the USL years, and then of course we'll transition to the MLS years where what's gone wrong. The first 2 years of the MLS years, and then with opening up the new stadium, typically if you do the Minnesota United path, you're horrible until you get the new stadium. Is FCC on that path? And then kind of what your expectations are going into this year. And I did catch a rant on Cincinnati Soccer Talk this week, so I have a feeling the direction will go there. So
well, that was my twin brother Brad dishing out
Brad
that this week, but I'm sure we agree on quite a bit of his rant.
So starting out, and I remember when FCC was, Cincinnati was announced, and it was a good market for USL just because of the size and through it here. I don't remember if MLS was the goal of the ownership of Cincinnati at the time, or was it more just USL, and then once you guys started playing and you saw the excitement, the crowds that arrived here, is that when MLS started to come into picture, or was MLS the goal always, from year one?
Well, let me start at the very beginning. So FC Cincinnati USL had a a miserable first like couple days. Outside of the John Harkes and everything, like you hear a lot of like the same faux pas with like quote unquote plastic, we'll say, marketing and those things. Like there's a heck of a video with a guy painting his face and fake plastic fans chanting and all this stuff. And I think that was
Nashville.
Yeah. So, but I think it was good because a lot of the soccer fans or the hopeful soccer fans in Cincinnati kind of saw it. And we said to the leader, Jeff Birding, we said, hey, like, and I'm not going to, this wasn't me, but this is like the Payne Rankin of the Pride, DJ Schweitzer of Wrong Side of the Pod, Chant Hollingsworth, scratching the pitch, and a bunch of other guys. They went to the ownership group of FC Cincinnati right away, the leadership group, and said, hey, this isn't going to cut it. We need to be supporter focused. We need to do X, Y, and Z to drive fans. And that's, I think, the moment when we started to really notice, okay, we can do good things. So when I say like going out, I mean, literally, how I first interacted with FC Cincinnati was right after the announcement. Mm-hmm. Jeff Birding came to a high school athletics booster meeting. So it was, normally this is a group of like 56-year-old dudes reminiscing about the glory days and state championships and all stuff. And these are all football guys. And there's like 25 of us in there. And it was like all these old guys, me and my brother, and another guy named Alex White, who's, our friend's younger brother. And he just talked about this whole picture of how he wants to build FC Cincinnati through Nippert Stadium and John Harkes, and how he wants to have something that'll grow, and maybe we can get to Major League Soccer one day, and all these things. And he just put this eloquent picture out there, and he got people involved. But it wasn't like a huge crowd. It was like, okay, I got the Weigel twins hooked at LaSalle, and he did another thing somewhere, and he got X and Y together, and he got these other people together, and he built an army, which then we went out and grabbed our friends. Like that's literally how FC Cincinnati started. I bring 2 fans to this game. You bring 2 to the next game, and it just snowballed. So a lot of great things with John Harkes, a lot of good publicity. There's some good names like Corbin Bone, Sean Nicoli that built some buzz. But that first game versus Charlotte, when we had like 10 or 12,000 fans there, which was huge back
at the time,
in USL days. And I think that was like, everybody's like, holy crap, it's 28 degrees outside, snowing, and we have this many people here. So I remember like calling into Jason Davis's show and being like, is it this feels like something special? And he goes, oh, it's a flash in the pan, your first game. Well, then we have Louisville 2 weeks later, and it went from like a 30-degree day to like a 65, 70-degree day and sunny. And we had like 20,000 fans there, and they got better. And then Crystal Palace had like 40,000 fans there. Yeah, whatever it was. And it just snowballed. But it wasn't like marketing, and it was a community feel, like, okay, a bunch of young football supporters getting more fans. I'm going to leapfrog a bunch of different thought patterns here. We have this area in Cincinnati called Over the Rhine, where there's a lot of these great hipster bars and soccer bars. And it literally was like, okay, one week we go there and you say, hey buddy, hey Jim, we had a great time at this Charlotte game. Come with us to the Louisville game. And that snowballed. And then all these, soccer families around the city, $100 you could get like a season ticket or whatever. Right. Then they started to jump on, and it just got to be this behemoth. But it was grassroots, organic. It wasn't just this big plastic campaign, but it was just because Jeff Birding went out there and grabbed people and got them involved, and got me and Brad involved. And we just, we turn it on. But there's so many success stories like that with Cincinnati that made our club special.
Yeah, I remember on Reddit in seeing the pricing of the season ticket members, or for season tickets there at Nippert, and I think all of us were like, well, no wonder you're having so many people. It was what, $5, $10, something crazy like that.
Oh,
like
free tickets, man, free tickets. I'm joking.
But that was the joke at the time. Is, well, it's because what our tickets here in San Antonio were, and they're reasonable, what, $2 something, for a seat, which isn't bad. But Cincinnati's was half of that, most, I think on average probably around half. But you look at the facility at, Nippert Stadium, like it ended up being the perfect launching pad, for FCC, because they could afford, just do the seating to have the season tickets prices lower than probably what the average was.
Every fan, when they first heard Nippert Stadium, they're like, "Oh, that's going to be awful. It's going to be like 2,000 fans and crazy." And I think they should. When you have Carl Lindner, who's worth like $2.5 billion, bunch of other really rich people, even some like Bengals were in the ownership. Like Carlos Dunlap, who I guess now just got cut from Seattle, he was part of the ownership group, and it wasn't about making money, and I think that was a luxury in that first year. And we still have some of the cheapest tickets in Major League Soccer. When you look at the personal seat licenses out of Charlotte and all that stuff, I just kind of crack up a little bit. But when you make the barrier of entry very low, I think that helps, and you don't have that pressure to have to turn a profit in year one, which I'm sure they haven't.
And you guys performed on the field. I think you finished third in the first year. Got knocked out in the first round of the playoffs. But we'll come back to that in year three. Sure. For that here. But to me, I guess, and even now, I guess, what makes FC Cincinnati the must ticket in town? Because you have the Bengals, you have the Reds as far as Major League Sports, and as well as FC Cincinnati. The Bengals, because it's NFL, it's always going to have it. But when you look at the Reds attendance, and like I said here, don't quote me on this, but last I've seen, it doesn't always sell out, we'll just say. And I know it's a little bit different because it's, 82, or it used to be 82 games. I think they may be lower in the season games this year again. But to me, what makes FCC, a must ticket in the town, because from my understanding, the demand is still very high, to go to a, FC Cincinnati game.
So I think we had like over 20,000 season ticket holders back in 2019, and that was absolutely wonderful. And I think with COVID, it's kind of diminished some things. And I think we had such a bad year in 2019, followed up with a very disappointing 2020 season, that I think that, okay, you're going to come to the stadium, have fun, but also watch a good product. That is kind of out the window, I think, a little bit right now. And so I think FC Cincinnati is going to have to do a lot of work this year. And I think the supporters will come through in the end, because I think that we always have. We've always done different ways to get people involved. I think they're going to have to really work hard to get that must-have ticket back to what it was a couple years ago, even in that first MLS season or that last USL season. But it's just a family. It's a family. I don't want to say family friendly, because it's definitely not in some areas, but you go there and it's like a community. So I lived in North Carolina after college. I moved to North Carolina after college, and I moved back in 2013. And I needed to find something that I just grabbed onto, and I latched onto FC Cincinnati. And there's a lot of people like that in the city, that, we still have 16,000 season ticket holders moving into the stadium. But I do think that with COVID and everything, there's going to have to be a second wave of energy, I guess you could say, to keep us on that cusp of, okay, we're still, you got to go to the game this weekend. I felt bad back in the days of USL before we got the MLS bid, because that was very front of mind, kind of going into the middle of that first, I guess, after Crystal Palace, and really after that winter when we had Don Garber visit. Like, you felt bad not using your season ticket or like giving it to a buddy. And I don't think they have that feeling anymore, but we do need to have some sense of urgency that it is special again.
And I know we'll get to this a little bit later, but I think opening a new stadium is going to re-energize the fan base. I think post-COVID, as far as once people get shots and vaccines and feel a little bit more comfortable going back into the stadiums, I think that will draw people back out to it. Not everybody, but I do think, once you get the shots, you're going to want to start life, and I hate saying that people didn't start life, but life's been kind of on hold for a lot of people. I know we haven't really gone anywhere since last year.
Come on, Texas is open, man. Texas is open.
COVID's over here, that. It's a whole separate discussion.
So we're going to be at 30% this year. At least at the beginning of the year, 30% capacity. So 7,800 fans to start the year. But we still have 2 more months in 2 more months until the season kicks off in Cincinnati. We don't open up till I think like the 16th of April of May. Because we're going to play the first like 4 or 5 weeks on the road. So I think you could see a little bit more. Right now, though, what they're saying is only season ticket holders will get to go to games. So I'm interested to see. I'm sure later in the year, hopefully, we'll be able to get the general public back in. But I think that could be a tough task for FC Cincinnati to continue to grow their fan base by not having new fans.
So to kind of circle back, because I think 2016 was the year of the attendance for FC Cincinnati, where to me it showed that Cincinnati is a soccer town. 27 to me, and I know this is going to sound funny, it wasn't the league, playing in USL that put Cincinnati on the map, and it was the Open Cup, who had, to me, probably one of the most impressive runs for a lower division team when you go back and look at who they played. Discounting the second round because it was a lower league club. Third round you played, who and I may be wrong on this, but I think is still probably the most hated rival of Cincinnati, Louisville City. I know Columbus is probably close, and I'm not
Nashville's close.
Nashville, but Nashville's like a little brother to me. For that here, and I don't mean that to sound bad, but to me, Nashville, I'm not a fan of Nashville. Fourth round, you knocked off the Columbus Crew 1-0, in the Hell Israel rivalry. To me, I think where it really started to take off was the advancing past the Chicago Fire, where it was a 3-1 in PKs, and I believe that one was on ESPN.
Mitch says no.
Then, and I remember this episode because I think it was Bill Wolf that was down in Miami for the Open Cup, and it got postponed due to weather, and then you guys had to go back down. You beat Miami FC, and
that was the Super Club Miami FC.
Yes, that was the best of USL versus, I don't want to say the best of USL, but I think most people had Cincinnati as one of the best clubs in USL. I know their league performance wasn't what it was, but it was because you guys were, in my opinion, putting everything into the Open Cup, for that here, and to beat them on the road for that here. Then I think in the semifinals, you got to face the New York Red Bulls, and you lost, unfortunately, in heartbreaking fashion. You guys had the lead, and then unfortunately lost it in extra time, and it was even a late goal that the Red Bulls scored. I want to say 79th minute, somewhere around there, to tie the game.
But went to overtime.
And then lost it in the extra time there at home, and that was also on ESPN and another full crowd. To me, this is what got FCC into MLS, was this Open Cup run with the attendance, the games on ESPN. You couldn't be a fan of U.S. soccer and not tuning into those matches because all of the matches were exciting. There was always drama, involved in them. And, even as a USL fan of the league, it kind of sucked seeing you guys go out, to the Red Bulls like you did that way for that here. But now that you're 4 years since then, probably seems like a lifetime ago, but how special, and I know you guys have talked about it, probably annually here, but as a supporter of the club, how special was that?
So that season was an emotional roller coaster because you lost John Harkes the day before they traveled to preseason. They brought Alan Koch in as the academy director, and then they promoted him to assistant coach, and then fired Harks. Like, nobody really knows the story, and
even still,
well, nothing
well,
to
that
say
you can air.
publicly.
Yeah, I got you.
But so that there wasn't a lot. Coach Koch blamed a lot of his struggles that season on not having his type of players, which again, I don't believe so, because from what I know, he did a lot of the recruiting that year as well. But there was still a lot of high character guys on that team that Harks brought in, such as like Andrew Wiedemann, that just battled for the city and battled for the club. And unfortunately, that the goal that he got called back for Chicago didn't stand, because that was a heck of a moment. But you just had guys that maybe weren't playing in the league, but were playing in that U.S. Open Cup run that just battled. And it was just an incredible moment, and I think I'll never forget that. I think that was probably the most special U.S. Open Cup run in recent memory of anybody out there. I mean, I think I want to say USL team made it in 2019 to the semifinals, but it just wasn't that same buzz, I guess you could say.
Right.
But I think
Mexico United went far, but
yeah,
they were always on the road, and I think if they would have played in New Mexico, and if it would have been on ESPN, it would have been a little bit different. But because they play, unfortunately, in a baseball park, it's a good park, it's a good facility, but
sure.
Unfortunately, they played all of their matches on the road for the Open Cup.
I'm going to say this is a weird take that I don't think you'll hear from many people. You say that it got us Major League Soccer, which I think it ended up doing. I think it put us into that picture. I think we were going in the MLS process. I still think we're always like that. Okay, we'll take Cincinnati if we have to category. But when you look at Cincinnati and like, you don't realize, okay, we sold 30,000 tickets several times. I think 3 times in that run up.
Yes,
all those were new purchases, like within like a 4-day span. Like, we broke the ticketing software several times. That's impressive.
Yes.
For Major League Soccer. Okay, yeah, if you give free tickets to your season ticket holders, okay, you got 20,000, so you only need to sell 10. No, we sold like 35,000 fans 3 times off budget for $25. Yeah. I mean, so I think that was an impressive view of it. And really, I think that's Garber and all those people are just like, holy crap. And then you had the Alexi losses, the Taylor Twellmans battling in our corner now. Okay, this is a market that MLS can't say no to, which unfortunately I think there's still a couple of those, but I think that like made us stand out versus like, a Sacramento or maybe, some of these other cities that ended up didn't get in. If they would have had a moment like that, I think they could have, really boosted their chances.
And that's why I say when I talk about the run, it's not just what was on the field, but I went and looked to see how much that you had attendance, against Louisville City in that third round. It was only about 6,500.
Yep.
So it wasn't even a normal night's turnout. But then when you had Columbus, the Fire, and the Red Bulls, it was 25, 30, 35,000, there against MLS teams. And, I could see maybe, I don't think the crew took that game serious, unlike maybe other MLS teams that, in that first round where, they may play their B+ squad. But I think, with it being Cincinnati versus Columbus and the close rivalry that connects with that, I think you probably got more of the A-, Columbus crew at that time. You probably know a little bit better than I do.
Sure. You still had Will Trapp and all those guys playing that match. And same thing, like Schweinsteiger played for the Chicago game. BWP didn't play till the end of the Red Bulls game, but it was still, I think.
Yeah, he did enough.
I don't know if Kaku played in that game or something, but yeah. So Dax McCarty played. So it was a heck of a year, but I think a lot of people kind of forget how good 2018 was, just because 2017 U.S. Open Cup was so sweet.
So brings us to 2018, and I believe it was a tweet where you guys crushed the league. And in a way,
Tifo,
Tifo,
which we did.
You guys did. You had a 22 game unbeaten streak to end.
Most points ever.
Well, I think Rising's eclipsed both of those.
They beat him.
The following mantle, but
at the time, the West is terrible. Come on now.
Oh, we won't talk about the Eastern and further here, but I'm just interested to see what USL does going forward since they split it up into the 4 divisions.
Yeah.
I wonder if they keep that because there's been rumors of the 3.
The 3, yeah.
But, I think you're hearing more and more of the complaints and, where the West is almost a different league compared to the East.
I
think with doing the 8 and 7, ideally they'd like to get them, even, don't get me wrong. But if you could even out the divisions where you could have cross divisional play, you kind of lose that argument of, hey, is USL number one, is USL too big, for that here. But so to me, obviously you had a great regular season. I still remember Reddit, Twitter, hey, we're going to walk from, the regular champion, the regular season to the playoffs to MLS, and you guys did advance in the first round. So you kind of got that playoff monkey off your back because you did advance. But then unfortunately the Red Bulls, this time Red Bulls 2, knocked you guys off in the semifinals, and I know that was kind of bittersweet because they knocked you out of the Open Cup the year before, and then kind of ended, FCC in USL at that time. But going to MLS, I didn't hear a lot of complaining, compared to normal. And I don't mean complaining in a bad way, but just, complaining about, hey, how we lost, because you guys had MLS and that was what was next, and that was exciting for that here. So how did that transition going from the excitement of, hey, we ended the year 22 game unbeaten, and then I think everybody would say it was a disappointing run in the playoffs, and then, but knowing you had MLS in the back pocket to fall back to.
Yeah. So that was a weird season because that was USL super team. I mean, that was a situation where if Cincinnati called you, you jumped. We got everybody that we wanted to. I think Richie Ryan got hurt, and we just went out and signed Michael Lahoud. I mean, that's insane. Like, Michael Lahoud for any team, San Antonio, baby, yes. For any team is a star. And, we just got him, not surplus, but, okay, we got hurt. Let's just go get Michael Lahoud. That was something pretty cool. We had a lot of I think MLS was that carrot there. So we got a lot of really good players that signed up for that team. Nazmi Al-Badawi, Patty Barrett out of Ireland. And
well, you guys had the NASL best 11. It seemed like you almost did because
Emmanuel Ledesma was the best player in NSL, and then the best player in USL the following year, with FC Cincinnati. And so you had a lot of these guys that were fighting to get on an MLS roster, but also they were fighting together because they realized, okay, this is something special. Mm-hmm. And so you get nervous on those groups, those types of groups where everybody's trying to beat each other. But that group was really special, and you had a lot of high character guys, and they realized, what the situation they're in, and they just went on a tear. And then MLS got announced, and people started looking over their shoulder, and then Fernando Adi came in, Fatai Alashe came in, and Pakanate came in. And there's 3 guys that were signed to MLS contracts. Pakanate never ended up coming to MLS with FC Cincinnati. Then there's another German guy they brought in, and it was weird, and it just shook up the culture. And you saw it in the last 5-6 games of the season, that just something wasn't there. That spark wasn't there, and we looked like crap versus Nashville, even though we beat them on penalties. And we, Hassan and Dom won a MLS expansion draft contract contract, joking, with FC Cincinnati by just man marking Fernando Adi out of that game in that second game. And it was defeating. It stunk. It hurt. But then the next day we woke up and we're like, expansion draft time, baby. MLS is here. So, it really did hurt. That losing to that New York Rebels 2 game was like the lowest moment I think I've ever had as an FC Cincinnati fan, because I was so disappointed. I wanted to win. I wanted to shut everybody up and just hold that trophy and say, double middle fingers up to some of the USL haters. No offense, but
hey, I was there. I still contend.
Cincinnati
has never won a USL playoff game, because technically that is a fact.
That's technically true, and I get so mad at it. But we did win nice silverware there in that regular season silver. We got more winning to do, Jeff Birding. Sorry, long answer, but I wanted to end our USL days on a high note. But at the end of the day, we were still so pumped because we have this brand new Porsche sitting out front of our house that we get to drive in after coming from, driving a great Buick. But, you go from being the Bayern Munich of a league to Nuremberg of a league. So that was a culture shock for FC Cincinnati.
So speaking of the MLS years, and I think this kind of sums it up here. And my question to you is, what happened? So it's been 2 years, 4 coaches out of 57 matches, 10 wins, and a negative 68 goal difference. And the only silverware you've won is 2 wooden spoons. And you're back-to-back on wooden spoons here. So I think a lot of the complaints, and it has to kind of go with the 2018, is Cincinnati was too USL heavy, NASL heavy players coming in. Because I spoke with Austin FC last night.
Sure.
And they were that was a comment that they made, is they didn't want to do the Minnesota United, the Cincinnati approach. Now obviously didn't play in NASL or USL, but using the upper tier Division II players to start the foundation of the team here. But without going in too deep as far as, per year, but just in general, what's gone wrong in these 2 years? Because you're right, to go from the highs to, unfortunately, it's, I hate to say this, but very bingo-like, unfortunately, so far in MLS for FCC.
Well, I'm going to write a book on this story someday. I'll tell you what. I will defend to my dying breath our USL players were not the problem. To my dying day. They weren't the problem. Our problem was having a coach who had no tactical acumen, having no general manager. Yep. I think Koch was a nice guy, and I think he could do things for guys who'd listen to, like younger players who'd listen to him. I think he does great things. I think he has a basic tactical acumen. He's coached. He's not a dummy, but he's not
an MLS quality.
He's a
coach.
He's a good checkers player, not a good chess player. Mm-hmm. And so he was an issue, and the players didn't respond to him, and he was run out of town by the players. No ifs, ands, or buts. The players said, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. Get us somebody new. Then we also didn't have a general manager. We had our president, Jeff Birding, who built some very good rosters for USL, dependent on the head coach recruiting. And that was a big fail. But we had brought in, the guy's name's slipping me right now, from the New York Cosmos. Luke Sassano is our technical director. He was going to be player recruitment, and he had some family issues, and I think he had some guys lined up that would have been pretty good players for FC Cincinnati, but Koch did not want them. Mm-hmm. And so I think there was a power struggle there. And then finally Birding said, no, this is done. We're getting away with this. We're going to bring in a general manager. So let's reshape the whole thing. So back to the player side of that, we had a mismatch of players who I think actually at the end of the day were all pretty good players, but we just didn't have
The leadership at the top.
Didn't have the leadership at the top. You had Fernando Adi, who really isn't a great player anymore, who carries the ego the size of Russia. And I think he was dragging down some things. But then I also think you spent a lot of like allocation money when you're building rosters. It's not about USL players. It's about spending your allocation money correctly. You went out, broke the bank to bring in a dumpster fire Kendall Waston. You throw a ton of GAM out there to bring in Greg Garza, Nick Hagelin. You're spending several $1 million worth of allocation money on players that have glaring issues when, in comparison, Nashville goes out and brings in Walker Zimmerman for half the price and locks him down. So you make a lot of these glaring errors, and then you lock them up to several-year contracts. Like we locked up, some of these players like Darren Maddox on several-year contracts, Kukuda Mane for several-year contracts that we just couldn't get out of because we were paying them too much. The roster budget wasn't, spent the right way. When you go out and get a TAM player, you want somebody who's going to be on the up and up. And, if we're going to spend $700,000 on a guy, I want to be more like Alan Cruz, who I could maybe sell on, not Darren Maddox. The only reason why we got him is because we, spent a bunch of money for him. So we just mismanaged the budgetary process. And when we finally had competent leadership, which we still are suffering from, we don't have the, how do I say this, financial flexibility to spend ourselves out of that right now. I think next year we'll have a big deal, some freedom to do more things. But, we just made so many critical errors in that initial roster build where, screw USL players. I mean, we went out and got, Roland Lamar and Victor Ulloa and all these guys who were good MLS players, but they're all in the back end of the career. And we just didn't bring in the right players. Like, look at Inter Miami. They brought in Victor Ulloa and they brought in Will Trapp and AJ De La Garza, all kind of on that. They're expensive players on the backside of the career. Nobody really wants them. And that's where we made a lot of mistakes. So short and sweet, that's kind of the answer. Like, I hate the USL narrative because those guys, like, if you
I don't mean that in a negative, but
but like look at Emmanuel Ledesma. Like, I think he was like a leading goal scorer or towards
he was
the
up
top.
there, yeah.
Justin Hoyt, while he's not a great right back anymore, he still was serviceable. And we really didn't rely on Corbin Bone or Jimmy McLaughlin that much to do a lot of things. So, I mean, those guys were just filling out the back end of the roster. But, every guy who we brought in, we either overpaid for them or they just didn't hit their potential.
So turning the page, which, it's a new year, it's a new stadium, and hopefully new results for that year. West End Stadium it was announced today, opens May 16th against Inter Miami. So my first question to you on that is, I'm not sure if you've been in it. I drove by Q2 Stadium here up in Austin a week and a half ago. It looks nice. I think it'll look nicer inside than the outside. But your thoughts on the West End Stadium and having a real home for FC Cincinnati, not having to share it with
Sure.
At Nippert, but your thoughts on the West End Stadium, which opens up this year.
So for all the crap Jeff Berding gets about putting bad product on the field in Major League Soccer, he's done the absolute opposite on everything else in terms of infrastructure for the club. We have a gorgeous training complex that has to be towards the top of the league. And then you have a crown jewel, which I think will be one of the top 3 best stadiums in Major League Soccer. It has everything that, Major League Baseball and NFL stadiums have, whether if it's suites or fan amenities or just all the bells and whistles that you need. And, it's a good size, 26,000, but I think it's finally getting us to the point where people will really want to come here, see the stadium, play for the club. And also the club's going to be able to turn some profit, I think, on it to be able to, spend more on players. So I think it's going to really give us a big shift. Now, if we still don't manage our budget correctly, I still think we're still going to struggle. Like this year, I think we have a good launching point to be successful. I don't know if we'll be there yet. But I think having the stadium and all that stuff is going to make things a little more special to get people back involved and kind of recapture some of that magic.
So what kind of changes, and this is coming from a fan or supporter, what kind of changes can fans expect coming from Nippert to Weston? You know, like pregame, postgame, and especially for supporters groups.
Well, let's start with the bathrooms, man. We're actually not going to have to pee in porta johns. So
you sound like a Rising fan.
So the cool things about Nippert and West End Stadium is they're both in neighborhoods around in Cincinnati. UC was in Clifton, a lot of bars, no tailgating. Like there was no tailgating at Nippert, and I don't think there's going to be much tailgating at West End Stadium. It's going to be going to restaurants, going to bars, going to parks in and around the West End Stadium area, which is in the West End, Cincinnati, right by Over the Rhine, which is the big, I call it hipster area, but great entertainment and just living area. So literally, you're going to be able to wake up and walk to FC Cincinnati games. You're not going to have to ride the metro. You're not going to have to, if you live in suburbs like I do, you're going to have to drive down, but literally it's in a living area. Yes, there's been some negative things with that, with gentrification and reshaping of the community. And I think the club's honestly trying to do right by a lot of those people that they've displaced. You're always going to get people that are very upset with that,
right.
But, they've done their best to be a good partner. Are they going to be perfect? No. But, my envisioning of the day, which is kind of like what it was in and around Nippert, is I get there 4 hours before the game, and I go drinking with my friends and have dinner. If I bring my son and my wife and my 2 younger kids now, we go and we go to a nice restaurant or park, and then we go to the game and have fun and make it a community event, which is what it kind of is. It's what it is. It's Cincinnati's team. It's not like a Bengals game where everybody just hops in their car and tailgates down at the banks in a big concrete jungle. It's truly interacting with the city. Now, the stadium, I wish it would have been designed a little bit differently. I wish it would have been a little bit more brick, kind of fitting in that, I don't know what theme it is, traditional we'll say, but I wish it would have blended a little bit more with the community. Instead, it looks like Red Bull Arena mixed with Allianz Arena, like dropping a spaceship, but inside it looks just tremendous and gorgeous. Our beat writer, Jeff Wallner, and our photographer, Jeremy, were in the stadium last week doing the tour, and it's amazing. It's got every amenity, every fan feature, but it's also going to be truly soccer. I would say soccer supporter culture. It's going to fit all those. Yeah, soccer centric. So everybody, like it's high pitched seating close to the stadium. So like literally like the second row or the second level. I think our Jeff Wallner, our beat writer, said like he was 3/4 up in the second level, and he was still closer to the field than the highest lower level seat in Nippert Stadium was. So that's a pretty cool little thing to have with the crowd. It's every seat's covered, so it's going to be echoing. It's going to be loud. The safe standing area for 3,000 supporters is going to be pretty cool with its own supporters bar. And I think they've done about everything they can. I've gotten a lot of weird surveys like smells of a stadium. Who cares what a stadium smells like? But they're trying to uncover every rock to get, just amazing experience.
So I asked, the Austin FC guys, Moon Tower Soccer, the podcast on there. Parking is a big issue at Q2 with it being in the community. It sounds like, how is the parking? I know you mentioned the suburbs, that might be a different story, along those lines, but how is parking built to where people can get in, get out? I know you mentioned a lot of it's going to be walk up and from the surrounding areas, but at least here in Austin or, up in Austin, I guess I should say, parking is the big concern with the stadium. And it's always been, they're going to be putting in a light rail closer to the stadium, but that's going to be a couple of years down the road. So getting in and out of West End Stadium, and of course, we'll have to see proof in the pudding. Don't get me wrong.
But so the nice part about it is it is on or very close to the streetcar route. So if you do need to park at the banks and do that, it should be fairly easy to do that. There are 2 parking garages that I think can fit like 2,000 cars, which again, that's what 6,000 fans, maybe 7,000 fans. So there's going to be some challenges. There are some, in the West End community, in that over the Rhine, there are some parking areas. It's down the road from the convention center too. So I'm sure it's going to be a challenge. But I mean, when we played at UC, I parked a mile and change away at Mecklenburg Gardens and did the march, and you just sober up on the walk back to your car, honestly. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But I mean, it's right off the highway. There's 2 exits right there.
So it shouldn't be that bad there, because
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be growing pains. There was with Nippert for sure. Even though we still played in college football there, but it'll be interesting. But I'm sure they've done a lot for it. I mean, I think the city right now, this is what I love about Cincinnati and FC Cincinnati. The city is doing a massive spend around an infrastructure, which it's controversial, but literally, like right now, I think they just released it this week. Like they're presenting to the community, and people are able to vote on what they want the streets around the stadium to look like, to ease congestion, to make pedestrian crossing better, to help with the school that's right next door, so kids can walk to school better. So they're really trying to do a lot of these great things to make the stadium flow better in and around the community, which I think a lot of ownership groups and a lot of cities probably wouldn't do.
Yeah. So turning to on the field.
Oh no.
Who is the one player for FCC that probably gets the media attention that I think is who's the one player to watch for? Who's going to be the star of the team?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So we're recording this at 9:45 on the 10th. And as of right now, Lucho Costa is rumored to be signing, is reported to be signing. There's nothing out of FC Cincinnati land yet. There has been some back channel.
It's all over everywhere else.
Everybody calm down news from the club. So I'm going to say Lucho Costa because everybody wants a 10. I think if you listen to a lot of our podcasts for Cincinnati Soccer Talk, you will hear a lot of cautious optimism for Lucho because he's played 4 very good seasons in Major League, 4 good seasons in Major League Soccer, 1 very good season of those 4 where he was best 11. And even in that 2018 season, it was confined to a several month period. It wasn't a great overall picture of a season. So very streaky player. I'm not sure he's the 10 that we need, but he's the 10 we got. So we haven't really had a true playmaker. And so I'm cautiously optimistic on what he's going to do. There's a lot of names out there. Brenner, the $13 million wonder kid out of Brazil. You have Jurgen Locadia, who's going to be an 8 to 10 million transfer fee if he can put goals up I'm guessing off the left wing this year. So there's a lot of storylines where guys haven't hit potential with FC Cincinnati who were good players before coming to Cincinnati. We'll see what happens. But right now, I think this team's going to live or die on how far Lucho takes them. And that scares the crap out of me, honestly. I want to root for him. People are saying Lucho Mania. I think it would be disingenuous to say he's going to be a great player, but I think if he can be an average player that puts FC Cincinnati in a good spot for 2021. Much better spot.
And I know we're a month or so away from the start of the season, but who is the player that maybe is not on the radar, but should be on the radar for people to watch, for FCC?
This is a cop-out, okay? So last year, our 3 designated players were Alan Cruz, Yuya Kubo, and Jurgen Locadia. Yuya Kubo came from he came from Germany, Japanese international player, and he was our leading scorer, I think, with like 3 goals last year.
Yeah, you guys didn't score very many.
Nobody's talking about him because we brought, Locadia, we brought in Brenner, we got Joe Zhao, we got a young Argentinian called Alvaro Barreal, And yet you got Yuya Kubo that's just kind of sitting there. He got hurt last year, played a long season, including Germany, before transferring over here. I think he's the guy that's going to surprise people. Like, I could absolutely see him starting 25, 30 games, putting up 10 goals and 6 assists for FC Cincinnati, either off the wing or maybe we play a Costa off the wing and drop Kubo into more of an attacking midfield or second striker role. So I think if we can really get him going, while he's not the attractive player that people look at when they are to talk about when you hear FC Cincinnati, if he's going, Cincinnati's in a good spot. If he's not going, do I think we're going to be in last place? No, but I think his upside is there to really help FC Cincinnati.
And that's the reason why I asked that question, because there's always the media focused, but at least on all the teams that I followed, there's always a player that you don't see coming. Whether maybe stat wise isn't there. Maybe it's when he's not on the field, you see the difference in the team. So that's why I like that question, because it's everybody can say, hey, Brenner's going to be the star as an example, because he's the young and upcoming star for FCC.
Sure. Can I make a caveat to my comment there, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
So FC Cincinnati is in a very difficult spot with their roster budget and their international spots again. Mm-hmm. And we only have so much allocation money. If you know about Major League Soccer's convoluted rules, we have to buy
a little bit, but nothing to speak on.
So Yuya Kubo was a designated player. Let's say he was making $800,000 last year. He's going to have to be bought below that designated player threshold of $600,000. So we're going to have to put at least $200,000 or more of allocation money to buy him down to allocation money player. And with that, he's an international spot. There's been rumors of a left winger coming in from FC Cincinnati. I could see him or even Alan Cruz being moved before season happens. So, because he has a good pedigree in Germany. He's put up numbers everywhere. He just had a bad year in Cincinnati last year, with COVID and the coaching change and all that other stuff. Things happen, but I could also see him being sold. That frees up a pretty attractive, 21 or 22-year-old signing. So
you bring up an interesting point, and I think I've seen articles on MLS.com. Last night Austin FC also mentioned this with the starting later in the year. The transfer window, I think, opens in June.
Sure. Transfer window's open today.
Right, but it closes and then it reopens for
the summer.
For the summer, for the summer DPs. Is FCC in a position to where they could possibly bring in somebody else, or?
Man,
and if you don't know that, I know I'm kind of throwing.
No, I think that's actually a great. I think that's a great question, because FC Cincinnati is really hamstrung right now with senior roster spots as well. So I think right now, if you add Brenner and Acosta, and then you have a guy on loan from Germany called Franco Kovacevic, I think we're at like 19 senior roster spots. You got Kyle Scott hanging out there. You have a right back, Armando Mendez, who's reportedly being brought in. We have a center back who's reportedly being brought in. We have a left winger who might be brought in. If we don't move guys, we are in a lot of trouble. I don't think we would keep Franco, so maybe one guy gets cut or bought out or traded. So I think it's possible. But I mean, if we're bringing in somebody in the summer, my biggest assumption would be is we're selling somebody, or Jurgen Locadia is leaving and we bring in a replacement.
And the reason why I mention that is because you hear, I don't follow MLS as closely as you do, obviously, but just kind of reading, the tea leaves is this summer may be the busiest summer for MLS, just partly due to COVID, but partly due to, the later starting people, not filling those DP slots now and waiting until waiting until that time frame.
I don't think FC Cincinnati has the luxury to wait for impact players.
Right.
I think we have to go get people now. We have 3 true center backs on the roster. We have Sada Dulsalam, who can be a 4th. We have 1 left back on the roster that's not a draft pick. So there's holes back there. There's a lot of really great, fun names in the attacking front, but this is, I said this on another show. This is a team that might score 75 goals, but allow 70. So,
hey,
it's going to be
San
fun.
Antonio's got 3 defenders right now, right on their roster as we speak.
Oh, man.
So, but the coaches, said, hey, we're looking at MLS. So I'm assuming we won't be, unfortunately, getting any FCC players for the back line. It sounds like that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you never know. We've been doing some weird stuff where we loan, opposed to FC Cincinnati loaning to like one team. Like we loan, like I think we loaned a keeper to like Louisville. We loaned a couple guys to North Carolina, somebody else to like Ottawa or something. But we loaned a guy up to the CPL, I think. So,
hey, we had got Lance Lang from you who performed really well and for well his time, and then
he got a raw deal. He absolutely got a raw deal in Cincinnati. I feel terrible for him.
We enjoyed him.
So I think he was the first guy that kind of saw through Alan Koch.
Right.
And he paid for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely paid for it. Unfortunately,
and I don't think you guys know this, when he came to San Antonio, the first year he did really well. And he was one of the big signings of 2019, I believe it was. Yeah, 2019. They brought in Alan Marcina, who used to be the Scorpions head coach, who had won an NASL title in 2016. I think he fell victim in the locker room here in San Antonio because they brought back Billy Forbes, who plays the same position, and then they were playing him, as a left back, Lance Lang, and he ended up getting hurt, and we had him on our other show, SA Soccer Roundtable, and it sounded like what happened in Cincinnati, unfortunately, happened again here in San Antonio, where he was signed to do X. They brought in player B, and unfortunately, he didn't get to do what he was signed to do. And I always felt bad for him on our side. I didn't know that he experienced the same thing up there in Cincinnati. So, and then Michael LaHood also came from Cincinnati down here, and congrats to Michael on number one coaching at Trinity, and then also being part of the Austin FC TV team with Adrian Healy. So guys making places, went from us to Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and you guys groomed him, and look where he's going now. So
Michael is the nicest, most genuine individual you ever meet that cares about everybody else first.
And he's not afraid to share his opinion. I heard I forget the name of the player, but the first round pick last year asking for a trade, and he's like,
Frankie. Yeah,
he's
Frankie
like,
Amaya.
Don't
come out with that. Yeah, so that's one thing with Frankie Amaya. I still think he'll play in FC Cincinnati, but he just wants money. He wants more money. He's on a GA deal. He's already getting paid probably more than what he's worth, but I think he's got delusions of grandeur, and we'll see what happens if he makes the Olympic qualifying roster. I think he's got more of a leg to stand on, but I'm just not sure that's it. But I'm excited for Michael, and we're gonna have Justin Hoyt, former Arsenal player and former FC Cincinnati player, join our crew here once he gets back into the States, which I think he just got back into the States this week. So, it couldn't be happier for the guy, and Austin is blessed to have Michael.
He's a smart guy. Like I said here, I've had a couple interactions with him, nothing like you guys have, but real nice guy, the nicest guy. And Beyond the Stripes did his story, from growing up and how he came here, and it's, if you haven't heard that, or if you haven't heard his story, it's an awesome story. It's one of those stories that you could see Disney doing down the road, from the rough start that he had, and how he's turned everything around to where he's got one of 30 or 28 teams in MLS at this point here on their media team for that here. Got 2 more questions here for you, or I guess 3 questions here. And I know we kind of talked about this here earlier, but with opening up a new stadium, typically teams get a bump. Minnesota United, as an example, that they were kind of bottom and then kind I don't know if they made the playoffs or were just out of the playoffs the year they opened up the new stadium. Is FCC in position to do that? Because I think the roster is better than last year, or at least on paper, from a novice like me, it seems like that they're making better moves. But from somebody that's more in the know and knows all the inner workings of MLS, are they going to be better?
So, yes, they will be better. I think it's nearly impossible to
be worse
when spending the amount of money that you're doing. I still think they have a lot of holes in the back line, and they need to figure those out. And the rumor is they are. Sources say that they're getting close, but I think if we make the playoffs, it'd be a tremendous success. I think if we are not competing for playoffs by the last 2-3 weeks of the year, I think there might be changes being made or getting close to being made. Mm-hmm. I have all the faith in the world in Jaap Stam. I love what he's trying to do, his vision. Yes, he probably isn't the best coach in the world, but I think he's trying to implement his style, the more possession-based style. But he's also smart enough to realize, okay, if he needs to bunker down, he'll do it. Mm-hmm. And I think last year we were nicking points, 1 point here and there, maybe scratching away, and then we switched from the 3-5-2 to a 4-3-3, and just basically we're planning for 2021 and just got our clocks clean because we didn't have the right players. So he's got his guys there. So I think you're going to see a little bit. I think you're going to see a step forward. It might not be the leap, but I think it'd be tough to repeat the level of crappiness we've had over the past 2 years.
So, and this one's kind of short and sweet. Playoffs or wooden spoon for FCC? If you were to kind of gamble on one, where are you putting your chip on?
I don't think we're going to be a playoff team because. So look at all the really young DPs in the league. Mm-hmm. Ezekiel Barco, Bryan Rodriguez. They don't necessarily score tons of goals. I think they probably can. And I think if Brenner can score 10 goals, I think it'd be wonderful, and we're doing great things because that means he's getting service. So
can make the playoffs, right?
What?
Can make the playoffs still? Because I thought more teams were making the playoffs this year.
I don't know exactly how many teams are making the playoffs yet, but I don't think that they're going to be. I think they're going to be close. I think they're going to be very close. But I think asking a lot out of Brenner is going to be. That's a big ask to put so much pressure on a young player. That's what I say. I think you're going to need Acosta and Locadia or whoever replaces Locadia to really. To really put up some good numbers.
And then, since I'm a USL guy,
sure.
And when SAFC was rumored to be on, they were on Garber's Rose list, on the MLS Bachelor show, before the Austin clause popped up for that here. I was always for my pocketbook, and access to the players, more on USL. Now, there's the advantages of MLS with the higher quality of players, the bigger budgets, more TV deals. Mm-hmm. So, as a fan for you, going from USL to MLS, what are some of the positives that you've experienced, and then what are some of the negatives? And then I have kind of a follow-up question more on, about Cincinnati Soccer Talk and how things have changed on that side.
So as a fan, you were FC Cincinnati USL, as I said earlier, was Bayern Munich, and mm-hmm. we clearly aren't now. We just couldn't go out and get whoever. We pretty much wanted at a certain level of player. I think that the enjoyment of the games and all that stuff will probably translate over, but just trying to build something is kind of gone now. So I'm interested. I think we don't have the overall mission that we did. So I'm interested to see what replaces that. In terms of media, so we Cincinnati Soccer Talk wasn't around for that first announcement. We kind of happened, a couple months later, but it literally was in the first several matches in FC Cincinnati history. It was Pat Brennan and Charlie Hatch of the Enquirer, Chad Hollingsworth of Scratching the Pitch, and then Cincinnati Soccer Talk in the box. And we were the only people covering Cincinnati Soccer Talk full-time year-round for that first season. And so that was cool. We got to have the players on all the time, and it was the players knew our names. It was just different. It was like we're here on a mission together. And then slowly over time, when the new guard for Major League Soccer came in, I don't think some of the new people, how do I say this? They wanted to shape FC Cincinnati their way. And I don't think they wanted to adapt to what FC Cincinnati was. So there was a lot of butting heads and issues there, whether it was coverage or whether it's fan interaction. And I think we're finally getting past that a little bit more. But it's kind of gotten to the point where, yes, this is a hobby. I don't make any money on it, but it's a job, and I'm having to fight for different things to give a good product out there. And something that we didn't love doing a lot was player rumors, and we did our fair share, don't get me wrong, in USL, but when you got a name or a tip or a reliable source, we were great with people at the club and in the league and agents, and it always happened. But in Major League Soccer, example, Pity Martinez, no matter how good your source is, things happen behind the scenes, and there's other people's hand in the pot. Gaston Pereira a year ago. There's other things in the pot where you might be sure something's happening, and it changes. And I think you'll hear a lot of people will talk a lot of crap to CST about Pity Martinez and a lot of things. And one day when we drink and are around a bonfire or something, I'll tell you the whole story. But that's been a thing that the world game of football and how different it is and how ruthless it is. I have all the respect in the world for Gerard Nightcamp. Do I always agree with what he's doing? No, but my God, it must be a pain in the ass to do what he does and work within the confines of the salary cap. Just that being an MLS GM is an awful job. I can't believe these guys sign up willingly to do this.
They make it so hard.
Oh, so hard. I understand why they do it. I really do. But yeah. So
but let me ask you a question on that. I understand why they had it at the start, because at the start they needed to put these in for the stability of the league.
Sure.
And I know Garber said they've lost $1 billion and stuff, which we'll leave that on the table.
Yeah.
But I think MLS
they've lost that much in revenue. So
right.
Unrealized revenue.
And I think a lot of that is through some, but that's the whole separate discussion. But to me, I think you could, because you've got, let's say Atlanta United, LAFC, the Galaxy, NYCFC. You could take some of the shackles off, maybe open it up, lessen the restraints to where I think it's a little bit easier for the average fan to follow. Because there's nothing funnier than when you guys went, from USL to MLS, there was an entire episode of, hey, these are the rules.
Yep.
I think, the Total Soccer Show once a year has the MLS rules. When, Moontown Soccer started, they had a show of these are the rules for that. And the rules change. That's the other thing, that comes with it here. Can you see MLS maybe adjusting some of those rules to where maybe it's a little bit easier, or you think that they're, this is kind of going to be how it is?
Not until after the World Cup, because they're locked into the MLS CBA
right.
Now, unless they force majeure their way out of it again. So I have enough issues explained to our listeners what a transfer fee is, and then I have to go into explain allocation. I have two neighbors who are diehard listeners to CST, and I still have to walk them through the nuances of why do we need to pay $500,000 to DC for a guy's rights who doesn't play for them? What makes sense for this? I think it's stupid, but I do understand why they're trying to do these things. I think at some point the shackles will be turned off or will be switched off when they get the better TV deals and things like that. But, right now we're still a third, fourth tier league in the world view. And I think if the shackles weren't taken off after COVID-19 right away, I think it's going to be tough to take them off for quite a while because, I said this on CST, the best time for Major League Soccer to put their presence out there was in this transfer window.
Right. And
nobody is making moves besides Austin and Cincinnati and who else,
Really, there's not. And the only reason why I think Austin is because they have to build a team.
Yeah. So I looked at people say it's a depressed market right now. I think a lot of people expected it to be a depressed market. I think the depressed market was over the summer. I think people realize, okay, the good market's coming in the summer.
Right.
But if you really want the good player, you're going to still have to pay for them. I think the guys like Brenner, clubs like Sao Paulo are like, okay, yeah, you need to pay $13 million for this player. But guys like Armando Mendez, who's this rumored right back coming from Nacional, or even Alvaro Barreal, who was a summer signing last year, they were okay. This is our second or third right back, or Mendez, he's a starting right back, but there's guys coming behind him. Okay, yeah, we'll give him. We just need some money in to help balance the books a little bit. So I think those players are out there for the taking, but guys like Brenner and guys with a lot of value and a lot of upside, I still think are pretty penny right now. So I know that wasn't necessarily the answer for your question, but
it was just it's I would love to see an open pyramid at some point. I don't think that'll ever happen, especially with MLS.
I think there could, but
no, I think it's going to be
a lot of money.
I think there's going to be promotion relegation. But I think it's going to be between MLS, MLS2, USL, Championship, USL League One, sure. USL League Two, UNISA, and through there. I think that's how you're going to see the pro rel in the United States. Just because, let's be honest with you, as much as you and I are fans, it's a business, and that's in sports in the United States. Just because, as we discussed, compared to maybe England and Germany and stuff, not saying that they don't have a lot of sports, but they don't have the volume of sports, that in my opinion, that the United States has.
Yeah. I joke about this, but let's get Mexico involved. Come on now.
People think it's going to happen.
Yeah. I think there is a chance pro rel happens. I don't foresee a realistic way besides somebody throwing a huge pot or it litigated out, because I just don't see in 1 year, even if they do MLS 1, MLS 2, if LA FC, and I mean they probably won't ever be, but imagine if LAFC, Red Bulls, and NYFC were the lowest three teams in the league. That would kill Major League Soccer. Without having 5 New York teams.
But you could have, and this is where I think it happens, is with basically it'll be in North America, pro rel. You're going to have Liga MX, you're going to have, the 3 Canadian teams, and then you're going to have, the teams here stateside. But that's, that's 2026 maybe and beyond. But I know we've gone probably a little bit longer than an hour. It looks like about an hour and 15 minutes here. But any final thoughts from you, Brian? Like I said, I've enjoyed the conversation and walking down memory lane. Like I said, it's always fun to touch base back with you guys, because
sure,
I used to chit chat with you guys a lot more. 3 years ago now than I do now. I still bother you every now and then, which is thank you for letting me pester you with my silly questions here, but. really appreciate the work that you and your team at Cincinnati Soccer does. Soccer Talk, pardon me, does
All right.
here. It's you guys, like I said here, in my opinion, one of the top 10 soccer shows in the United States at this point.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me on. I guess my thought is I know we get upset with how our leagues are structured and everything, but at the end of the day, if you can find an outlet in any soccer club, I'd love to do that. And that's why at Cincinnati Soccer Talk we've covered, heck, we produced the broadcasts for the past 2 years for our local USL 2 team. And I mean, even if you have a club, like my first team I fell in love with was the Carolina Dynamo in USL Pro. I mean, okay, I really liked Columbus Crew too, but like when I lived in North Carolina, like I went to those games. They were a blast. And if you can have great times watching okay soccer, and but the only way it's going to get bigger and better is if we do shows like this and we cover it and we push it out there, because let's face it, national media is not doing it until they're forced to do it. I mean, look at hockey. They were like, ESPN's like, we're not even covering hockey anymore.
Well, they finally used to, and they lost the contract, and then hockey, what's that? Yeah. And now, hey, we love hockey again.
Exactly,
and I'm excited.
They're forced to do it. So
watch hockey again. So ESPN Plus, I love you.
Yes. So I think the more groups like us that are out there, the better. And don't put your stuff behind a paywall if you can. We ask for supporters. Like we take donations because this microphone set up and the camera that I'm on, and paying beat writers. Because let's face it, like I used to kill myself covering this team, and my wife wasn't happy, and my kids didn't see me.
Saw you.
Yeah, so it's a labor of love, and you give things up sometimes. But try just to make things accessible, and try not to be exclusive, and try not to try not to be the know-it-all, but just try to be a place that people gather together. And that's why I love about, and we lose that in sometimes covering FC Cincinnati, especially because it's been so hard the past couple of years. Mm-hmm. But like, we do things with what we call watch-alongs. So like I sit my camera like this and I have the TV on that wall, and me and my brother watch games and live stream and talk about it, and have 50, 70, 100 people in our chat room, talking to us about it, and things like that is why I joined Cincinnati Soccer, or why I wanted to do Cincinnati Soccer Talk, not to say Yopstom sucks or we need to fire Gerard, which again I don't believe.
Well, you have gotten in trouble before, if memory serves me correct.
Well, that's because of alcohol, but also I was right at the end of the day. I'm despicable.
We have we have crossed a line or two, but never too far.
Oh yeah.
But like I said here, you kind of along those lines, and this is an argument that I've gone back and forth with now NISA guys, is the league structure is one thing. So MLS is this, USL's franchise, NISA is that. But if you really look at it at a club level, it's all about the community. As much as I am not a fan of Austin FC, just because of the Austin clause. I did join the Los Verdes, supporters group, and it was more, hey, here's 25 because I like what you're doing for the community and stuff along those lines. And I think that's the big takeaway when it comes to the game, whether it's supporting, UPSL, National Soccer League, the Women's League, which I messed up by not asking you about the Women's League, about WSL in Cincinnati, because like I said, that's a topic that I'm a fan of women's soccer, and
I would give you a quick update.
Austin, and I'm assuming Cincinnati would love a team as well.
Yeah, briefly, yes, it will happen. But Jeff Birding's own words at the press conference for the stadium last week was, yes, but we need to get our ducks in a row on the men's side first.
Yeah. So, and Louisville, the frenemies to the south, already got one. So, in their beautiful stadium, which I was lucky enough to go see see them play the baseball stadium the last year that it closed. And
my brother got kicked out of that stadium.
I think that was on a show, right? Episode
Yeah,
think
he
it
got
was,
kicked out of that stadium because somebody threw a streamer. And they just ejected the whole front row, regardless. Streamer gate. And then we brought an inflatable crazy arm guy. We snuck the inflatable crazy arm guy into the next game there. And then we torched that thing up, and a lot more people got tossed out later. That's at Louisville, dude.
Didn't Sub's mom also get tossed?
Sub's mom and dad got tossed out. Yeah.
I remember that. That was
and we didn't do anything wrong. Like, it wasn't even us.
But that was
fun stuff.
Those were fun stuffs here. But let me go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you for everybody turning in. Sorry it went a little bit longer than anticipated, but like I said here, I enjoy talking, with Bryan and the Cincinnati Soccer guys, and I think the history of Cincinnati down the road, if Bryan wants to write a book on, I think would be fascinating, just to go from the highs to the lows, and at some point they're going to get it right, and it's just a question of when and how long here. But thank you for turning in to tonight's United Soccer FC episode about FC Cincinnati.